Hey y'all, this is Tyler Blake from Exowhips again, and this week I'm going to be concluding my three-part series on on crackers. This is another video on tapered crackers, and it's not really, technically it's not anything new. I'm just showing some variations on the techniques that we did last week and throwing some theory at y'all. So last week I did this tapered cracker that is completely made out of artificial sinew. I think I forgot to throw this number out, but this one comes in at, including the tassel, about 21 inches, and that's I have talked to people that just don't like crackers that long, which is totally fine. You know, there's so much room for personal preference out there with everything. So I'm going to show a variation on that, and then I'll do a shorter tapered cracker. So that one was all artificial sinew. I'm going to do one now that's combined with artificial sinew and Dyneema. Okay, so this is Cast King Super Power Braid, 50-pound test. And just like my artificial sinew, I get this from my friend Roy Partine over at whipnation.com. And I do really like it. I don't know if this will show up on camera well, but it's extremely fine. Like if, I'll try and hold up this and the artificial sinew to where you can see them together. Hopefully, you know, so this is quite a bit thinner than the sinew, although the sinew is flat, so it's not like the sinew is round the way the Dyneema is, but still. So what I like to do is double up the Dyneema because for me it's just a little bit too thin. It produces a very sharp crack when you do it, because I when I first got this, I was experimenting around, but I felt like I had to put a little bit too much muscle into it. So, and you know, you might go ahead and try it. You might like it just fine without doubling it. And any of this stuff, I don't intend for anybody to take what I put out on these videos as like gospel. That's the only way to do it. You know, take the principles and go to town with it. Experiment. You can, you know, we talked on the first video. We talked about the neighborhood style crackers that my friend Robbie Emper came up with. You could do a tapered design on that where you combine artificial sinew with the light fluffy stuff. I've done a couple of those and they work well. You could do baling twine. You could do all baling twine. You could combine it with artificial sinew. You could combine it with Dyneema. Sky's the limit. Go for it. So anyway, if y'all remember, we started off with a 96-inch long piece of sinew to get going on that. And so since I'm going to double it, that would be, that's right, 192 inches. So I'm just going to guesstimate this for starters. It's about 60. There's about 120. There's about 180 and change. So there's 120 and 72 brings that up to 192. Now Dyneema, I now that I'm running my mouth about it, I wish I had looked this up on Google. Dyneema is pretty tough, and it can be difficult to cut. I think I heard somebody say somewhere that it's similar to Kevlar, and if I have played around with Kevlar thread a little bit for making crackers, and you have to be really careful with that because I've heard of people cutting their own thongs on their whip, or, you know, because it, you know, people like it, I guess, for cutting targets, but you can cut yourself with those. So if you try that, just be real careful. And if you're a beginner, I would advise against it. Just, you know, get used to controlling the whip before you do anything that's, like, really dangerous. So, same thing, I do a double overhand knot on the end there. And then, because we're folding this in half, I'm going to bring that knot I just tied even with the loop there. Now I don't really need to tie these together. I'll just take this and put it on my hook here. And then both of these can go on the drill. Give me just a second. Everything takes longer when you have a camera running. Okay, so even that up there because I don't want the knot, you know, partway down. Cause you want to have the knot either on this end or that end because you'll trim it off when you do your tassel, right? So, okay, and let's see. On my measurements for the sinew part. Let's see, I'll do 24 inches. One piece of advice that I give over and over again to people who are just getting started out with whip making is that you need to get used to, you need to become the master of copious notes. So if you're doing anything, take notes about it. And that goes for if you're plating a belly, or trying out an overlay, or making crackers. You want to keep track of what your measurements are, and that way if it turns out great, you can recreate it. If it turns out not so good, you want to know what you did wrong so you don't repeat it and waste a lot of material repeating your mistake. I even do that for tying Turk's head knots, because once, like if you're, let's say you're trying out a new knot, once you know how much material it's going to take you to do the knot, then you're not wasting anything. And so what I like to do with the Turk's head knots is I'll know how much lace I need to do, however many passes I'm working on, and then I'll put in extra length because I know how much it takes for me to make a fall. I'll go ahead and add, you know, the extra length I need for a fall onto that. And that way, because you're always going to have some waste with a knot because you have to have room to pull on it, that way, you know, right where I trim it at the knot, when I'm done, that goes into the fall. So that's that much less stuff that I'm wasting at the end. Anyway, that was a little sidetrack. And because I was running my mouth, I totally lost my place. So I'm trimming 24 inches off of my spool here, and I'm doing that twice. Okay. And if you remember from last week, this is done in 7-inch increments. And the Dyneema, because it's, you know, the sinew is just loose strands that are waxed and they kind of bunch together. The Dyneema is braided, and so it has a texture to it. So you know, last time I talked about using a little bit of super glue to keep the knots from sliding one way or the other while you're working. That's not as much of a concern with when you're using the artificial sinew and the Dyneema. But I still like to glue them because the first thing that's going to go on these is because Dyneema makes a long-lasting cracker, but the first thing that's going to go is where the knots secure the sinew to the Dyneema. So using the glue just gives it a little bit more longevity. You could do exactly what I'm doing and make the whole thing out of Dyneema if you wanted to. Why not? Anyway, okay, so I'm going to come in 7 inches. Actually, I'll go 8 because of the tassel. And that was a blood knot, so I'm going to go around, so I have a loop. The free end goes around and through the loop twice. And tighten up. A little bit of glue. I usually keep a paper towel. Here we go. I keep a paper towel handy because I like to be able to just kind of dab up some of that excess glue. 'Cause it can take a long time for that stuff to dry, and then while you're working on it, you're getting the super glue all on your hands and, you know, getting glued to yourself. So, let's see, here's my other 24-inch piece. So I'll come down 7 inches from the first knot, and this is going to go around the Dyneema as well as the first piece of artificial sinew. So it's going to secure the sinew to the Dyneema as well as lock this strand in. So goes around once, and through the loop, goes around twice, goes around twice, through the loop, and I'll just kind of pull everything tight and tighten that up. A little more glue again. The other thing with paper towel is that you don't, if you use a little bit too much and it's dripping, don't get it on the carpet. Okay, and then, so this is the first strand that I did again, and you can tell because it's shorter. I'll bring that down, and it's going to do the exact same thing where it's going to go around the Dyneema as well as the sinew. And I'm going to measure that just to be on the safe side. That can't be right. Oh, I got that way too close. My bad. You can do that while it's still wet. Once it dries, you'll be out of luck. Okay. Actually, it's going to be 14 inches down to here. Okay. The last 7 inches goes to there. I still, I'm sorry, I'm off camera, but I guess I don't need to have that on the drill yet. Okay. And then I'm going to glue this, but before I do that, I'm going to double check. Yeah, so that probably doesn't show up, but those are all evenly spaced out from this hand to where the hook is going to be, so that you want to do that in even increments so it's a nice smooth taper on here. Just in the same way that you want to have a nice smooth taper on the thumb of your whip. Okay, so this is gonna hook on there. I'll do my glue before I forget on these last two. And then each of these knots has an inch or two extra poking out, and I can just trim that after I have wound the cracker. Okay. So I'll count to 8 and then maybe give it a little extra twist. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, there we go. This is actually my favorite cracker, the Dyneema mixed with the artificial sinew. That doesn't mean it'll be yours, but for the different ones that I've tried, and I like to experiment, so I've messed with quite a bit. The way it feels when you crack and also the sound that it produces is very satisfying. So